Hello and welcome to the JustNabz podcast with me, Nabil, and
Nabila, hi, hello.
welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, how have you been?
Quite fine, thank you. I cannot, there are people far worse than me. How about you?
I'm good. I missed this. I've been so busy like over the last 2-3 weeks now. So yeah, I'm excited to sit down, dust off my mic.
It feels like a year, doesn't it?
Yeah. And
Wow.
it went by so quickly.
See,
Our last episode was our Mother's Day episode.
yeah, so it means two or 3 weeks ago. I can't even remember. Bloody hell. But yeah, so many things happened worldwide since our last episode, and mainly we shall address the whole thing going on in between. It's mainly one way, but let's say between Israel and Palestine. So regardless of whether you have a general idea of it, or whether you are an activist, or whether you have never heard of the problem, this should be a safe space to speak our minds clearly and address what's going on with clear words, as we both feel that worldwide, even the wording, even the phrasing of the whole quote unquote conflict, which is not is not adequate, let's say. So this is what this episode is going to be about. We want to say from the beginning, this is a very touching matter to both of us. But we, as always, we welcome you to share with us your opinions, your experiences, maybe, or some friends' experiences of someone you know, because it would be vital right now to get the experiences of the people who are there. We both have this. We're both lucky. In some way, we do not live in such conditions, but it is time we give those people living in those conditions a voice for themselves. So when did this all start? These last happenings, these last new events. I think at the beginning of the month.
Okay, so it has been going on for 73 years.
Yeah, of course.
let's go. Let's start there. But the latest flare up started when Masjid al-Aqsa was stormed in the last 10 days of Ramadan.
It was, exactly. And for those who do not know that, Masjid al-Aqsa is a mosque, a big mosque in Jerusalem, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's a big mosque in Jerusalem, where, of course,
it's a very holy site for Muslims.
Exactly.
We believe that it was actually our first direction of prayer before Makkah and before the direction that we currently pray in.
Indeed.
Before we start, I know people are going to roll their eyes and be like, oh, this Palestine thing is coming up again. Like, we're hearing about it everywhere now. Good, because that's what it's supposed to be like. I think for too long, people have been too quiet about this topic. It's always been like, oh no, this is too controversial to talk about, swept under the rug. Oh, in a professional environment, you don't talk about it. But I'm glad that there has been this whole outcry on social media. Palestinians have been posting their first-hand encounters online, and for so long the media has been controlled by Zionists that we've never really gotten the real story unless we really dug for it. So there's no hiding their atrocities anymore, and the world is finally being exposed to what is happening there. And we just need to carry on talking about it, just carry on sharing, exposing, so that steps can be made to free Palestine.
Absolutely. And I want to share the same message, which is all about having a free Palestine. And, what I want to say is, yes, I'm really, really happy that word is going out and people from all over the world are talking about this. So last year, when there was the whole Black Lives Matter thing going on, of course, I was supported the movement, but I was also kind of thinking about the fact that Palestinians have never gotten so as much recognition of their issues as much as black people did last year, for instance. And it was good. It was good seeing black issues coming up and racial and racism being exposed and everything. But I always felt, well, yes, but isn't it a bit? Sometimes isn't everything about the US many times, and
Yeah.
and seeing this year that this issue is coming up mainly thanks to social media. So when you tweet or when you write something on Facebook or Instagram and someone comes to you and says, well, what are you going to do with that? I mean, are they going to stop because you posted something on Instagram or on Twitter? Well, yes, because admittedly, this whole thing coming up is because it's gotten so much recognition on social media. So last year, with the Black Lives Matter movement, the majority of the donations came through social media channels. So we have to see that nowadays, social media is a huge platform, a huge weapon you have. As much as a gun, it is a weapon, and you choose how to use it. So seeing that this recognition, this weapon, is being used in a good way, it really gives me so much pride in the human race. But at the same time, I can still recognize that some people are not informed, some people are not involved, mainly because they say, okay, I know nothing of that, so I'm just going to shut up. And it's okay, of course, if you don't know about something, you don't have to speak up. But at the same time, it is your choice nowadays to stay, pass me the term, ignorant on some topics. So if you don't know anything about Israel and Palestine, it's mainly because you chose to. It's not that it's so difficult to get informations on the matter and get educated. It's really not, because it's all over the place. But if you keep on avoiding it, it is your choice. So it's not something that you're going to be taught in school. Not yet. Not in a good way, I have to say. But if you don't know anything about the matter, please get informed, please get educated, and be humble and get educated on the matter. Don't say anything, of course. If you don't know, shut up, by any means, but get educated on the matter.
Yeah. Yeah, so I been exposed to all this from a very young age, and every time there's a flare up in action on that side, there'll be an outcry from people, and everyone starts protesting, and then the hype dies down, and we go back to our lives. But I feel like this time is really different to 2014, years before that, and it's all due to social media. And also, you mentioned Black Lives Matter movement. I think the actual issue that needs to be exposed, because Black Lives Matter and the Palestinian struggle are interconnected, no doubt. They are one in the same. And the actual issue we need to be exposing is US imperialism, colonialism, and it's imperialism and colonialism that needs to be exposed. ethnic cleansing as well, because it's happening all over Africa, in Palestine as well, parts of the Middle East, and that's the root issue that needs to be talked about. So we said this whole issue started in 73 years ago.
Yeah.
And when Palestinians call it the Nakba, which means the catastrophe, where 750,000 Palestinians were ethnically cleansed from their homes when Israel, inverted commas, was established in 73 years ago. It'd be 1948,
48, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, 1948. And so they were forced out of their homes. They were displaced, which is currently still happening in Sheikh Jarrah and Silwa now, I think is the neighborhood in Gaza. It's still happening.
Yeah.
73 years later.
So I wanted to give some context here. Because sometimes we tend to think, okay, that's the Middle East, but I don't know that. Okay, so let's say you are American, right? So you have the West Coast and the East Coast, and in the middle you have Texas and many other states. I don't really know the geography of the US, but let's suppose that the US, one day some people came and said, okay, nice, I like the US. So from now on, the West Coast and the East Coast is going to be the US, and in the middle we will have this new country. Let's call it Israel. So in this new country, you Americans have to leave your homes. You can choose to go to the East Coast or to the West Coast, and you can go there and find new homes, and we're going to take this part, okay? Let's say you're British. So you have London, and you have Manchester, you have Liverpool, you have Wales, Scotland, and everything, okay? And that's the UK. Marvellous. Let's leave Ireland and Northern Ireland. So one day, some people come and say, oh yeah, nice, I like it. You know what? We're going to leave you the southern part and Scotland. You can keep that. But in the middle, and the part of London is going to be this new amazing country, Israel. You have to leave your homes. You can go to the north, you can go to the south. You can pass me the term, fuck off. We're going to take this part of your country. How would you feel? Is that, do you think that's right?
The worst part about this, though, is like, it's like, okay, but so if you're saying we taking this part of the land. So with Palestine, it was the British who actually gave Palestinian land to the Zionists. And you also notice, like, I'll call them Zionists because that's what they are. They're not Jewish people. And this is also something I wanted to talk about because, there have been now reports in the media saying, oh, this is anti-Semitism, you hate Jews, you are speaking up against Jews. We do not hate Jews. Okay, it's simple as that. We are not anti-Jewish. We are not anti-Semitic. We are anti-Zionist. And Zionism, okay, let's first go into what is anti-Semitism? It's prejudice against Jewish people. But Zionists are not Jews. Zionism is actually a political ideology. It's not a religion. And it was...
sorry, let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
Let me interrupt you. Sorry. There are some Jewish people who are anti-Zionist. Some Jewish people, Orthodox Jewish, who do not approve the existence of Israel. So...
Yeah. So Zionism was created by Theodor Herzl in 1897, it's recent. It's a new concept. And he said that Palestine belongs to Jewish people. And if everyone else who lives there, if the pre-existing Palestinian people, and Palestinian people doesn't only mean Muslims. You get Palestinian Jews, you get Palestinian Christians, and you get Palestinian Muslims, and everyone in between. So this is not a war between religions. It's the fact that Zionists believe that that land belongs to them, and they are going to ethnically cleanse everyone who belongs on that land out so that they can have that land. So yeah, Zionism is basically a settler colonial project. It's a project. And anti-Zionism would be rejecting this racist and colonial movement. It is not in any way saying that we are anti-Jewish. Yeah, so that's just one thing I wanted to make clear.
Absolutely.
If you are a Zionist and you say, but I am pro-Palestinian, you can't, because the foundation of Zionism is, the core values of Zionism is that, Palestinians don't have human rights. They need to be cleansed. But you can be Jewish and pro-Palestinian, because, Jewish people are anti-Zionist as well.
And let me say, because I've seen some Zionists say that the foundation of Zionism is in the Torah, which is the Jewish holy book. Reject that thing. There's no such thing. And I would urge Zionists themselves to leave religion out of it. We, on the other side, are trying to leave religion out of it. Please do not make it a matter of religion. When some terrorist goes and bombs Paris, for instance, what we say is that is not Islam. That is not Islam. That they're not Muslims. We reject them.
Yeah.
So I would urge the same people on the other side, Jewish people mainly, to reject Zionists, and Zionists to not bring religion into this. We do not hate Jews. We don't even mention them. That is not the point of it. The point is Zionism, imperialism. For instance, if you take European imperialism and colonization, no one brought religion into that. No one said the Bible said we should do that. And no Muslim says Christians are despicable because of colonization. No one talks about religion. So let's leave religion out of it. Some people still think that the whole thing between Israel and Palestine is a matter of religion. That is not the case. That is not the case at all. It's not a matter of religion. It's a matter of human rights being violated to impose some power.
These people literally storm into Palestinian homes, kick the families out by force. And these are like regular people in like normal clothes, and settlers come into your house, kick you out, and they're like, if I don't steal this, someone else is going to come and steal it, and now I'm entitled to your house. And they'll just come happily move into your house. And now where are you supposed to go? This is your home. They'll either bulldoze your house and rebuild on your land, or they'll just live in your current house.
Absolutely.
As is.
And bear in mind that the things we're reporting are the same things that are reported by Zionist media, because they're actually proud of what they're doing. So let's say you have your house and you build a new garage. Because you have a new car, you want a garage, and you build a garage. So you build a garage, and then you go to sleep. The day after, a new family of Zionists is living in your garage, and you go down there and you say, okay, you cannot leave there. That's my garage. You have to get out. Well, no, they're not getting out. And if you keep on saying anything, they will call the judge, and the judge will rule you out of your house. But if you stay put and you don't say anything and you leave them in your garage, the day after you may want to go to work, but when you come back from work, the door, your keys don't open your door, and someone else is living in your house, so you're basically thrown out of your place. So the things that we are reporting, I want to say that once again, they're not reported by Palestinian media. There's no Palestinian media. That's the thing, because Palestine, the way it is now, it's heavily some channels like food coming into the country, or people coming into the country are all controlled by Israel. Israel controls what comes in and out of Palestine at the current state. So there's no
Yeah.
Palestinian media at the moment. This is all the media approved by Israel, and they are reporting these things. So even if you're a Zionist and you choose not to believe these things, you're not believing your own media. That's the thing. But you know what? I want to address the thing that this is all going on because Hamas is trying to launch rockets on Israel. So there are many things we shall say. First of all, rockets coming from Palestine through Hamas, they're not proper rockets. They're like very
They're
very
homemade,
soft.
basically.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
like homemade, and they're like fireworks. That anyway get and on the other side we have Israel. So Israel has worldwide the most advanced military techniques and technology that any country could ever dream of. So Israel is literally the most defensed fort in the whole world for
And
many, many
who's
reasons.
funding them? Who's giving them the
The
money?
US, the US.
Exactly.
And so you cannot even believe that Hamas is getting their rockets into Israel. But let's suppose that that is happening. It is not happening. Not at all. There are no reports of rockets actually landing in any Israel or in any Israel part of land. So
According to international laws, Palestine has every right to defend themselves because it's their land. And technically, Israel are the oppressor. So they have no right to, inverted commas, defend themselves, which is what they're claiming they are doing by raining 700 billion or million dollars worth of military
indeed,
weapons on Palestine.
indeed.
And
And
they've broken so many international laws. They have violated so many international laws, and nothing is being done. Iraq broke two, I think, violated international laws for 8 years straight. The U.S. bombed them, and nothing's happening to Israel. They've broken countless laws.
I do agree absolutely. And I I want to say also that just let's even leaving the international law alone. So as I said, we are lucky we do not live such conditions. But given the all everything we've said up until now, if Italy were to launch rockets on France, I would say that's bad. Why are we doing that? But I cannot, and I want to say it is not good to bomb Israel. I want to state that. But at the same time, in no way I'm ever going to go up to a Palestinian who has seen their lives fallen apart. They lost their homes, they got stolen, their homes got stolen, their lives got stolen, their families got killed. I'm never going to go to a person such as this and say you should not relaunch rockets. I'm never going to do that. So it's when you say Hamas shouldn't be throwing rockets, you have to understand that Hamas, and we Italians know that because when we had fascism, there was this ANPI, which was this huge organization who actually freed Italy from fascism, and they killed fascists. So when they went up to fascists, they did not say, "Please don't do that." They killed them because they had to kill them. Because if you don't
There's
kill
no other way
fascists,
you can
yeah,
get your voice heard. There's no like, let's have a cup of tea and discuss this. When you are being consistently bombed and okay, you know what? Let's put Hamas and bombing and that aside. If you okay, so people are using the excuse, but Hamas rockets, forget that. Let's look at other aspects. How Israel are oppressing Palestinians. So, first things first, Israel has complete control over Palestinian water supply. Israeli water usage per day is something like 300 liters per person, whereas Palestinians, it's about 70 odd liters per person a day. And Israel continuously destroy Palestinian water infrastructure, and then they prevent any repair or maintenance to these infrastructure. So that's one thing, and then there's also the issue of them spraying Palestinian farmlands with herbicides, so that these people can't grow, so their crops don't grow. And I mean, now they need to eat, they need to trade, they that's their livelihood, and Israel takes this away from them. Like, I mean, how cruel can you be? You fly over farmlands and you're spraying herbicides to kill crops. Also, they block trade between Palestinian cities. So if someone is in Ramallah, you can't trade with someone in Gaza. Yeah, so there's no trading, there's no movement of money. There's that. Then there's also
And also,
Palestine.
when they bomb buildings, they prevent cement from coming in, so you cannot rebuild buildings.
Yeah. So they restrict what comes into Palestine, what Palestinians have access to. Palestinian goods can't go onto the Israeli market, whereas Israeli goods can be sold in Palestine. There's so much. Palestinians are prevented from pursuing a higher education, or they make it very difficult for them to get a higher education. There are checkpoints, so women. I've heard so many stories of women losing their babies at these checkpoints because they can't get to a hospital on the other side. There's a story where a woman will go into hospital, but then her time expires there, or her permit expires, and now she has to go back home and she has to leave her babies at the hospital, and then the babies disappear or the babies die, and the the
The babies.
trauma.
So can I say one thing about the babies? So in Palestine, this is becoming. It's really cruel to hear this, but you have to hear it. So when there are these two families, family A and family B, and they both have babies. So baby A and baby B. What happens is both families A and B go to the hospital, and many times they exchange their babies. So family A gives baby A to family B and vice versa. So why
So in the
do they
hopes
do
that
that?
their family line will survive.
Exactly. So that if family A is killed, baby B is killed, but then baby A pursues the line. As vice versa, if family B is killed, baby A is killed, and baby B can pursue the line. And that is cruel. So I cannot believe. So I've said here in Italy we had fascism. So when we study fascism, many people say, well, I can't believe how citizens, how normal people would stay quiet and not say anything while all that was happening. So how did they stay quiet? Didn't they see concentration camps? They see Auschwitz? Well, they did see Auschwitz because many times Germans were actually using that as a sign of pride. We are using Jews to produce this huge Germany, and same goes for Italy. But when you ask that question, how didn't people react? How did no one say anything? Well, you're doing quite the same. The vast majority of you, right now, you're doing quite the same. You're choosing to turn your head and not see that. But one day, let me say, when Palestine will be free, you will come to the conclusion that you admittedly and voluntarily turned your head and chose not to see that, not to help that, not to speak out about that. And let me say, this is as much Nazist as Hitler. And we've had Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israel Prime Minister, actually defend.
Basically a criminal.
Yeah, that twat. We had him defend Hitler. So, a Jew. So, when we say that anti-Zionist is not anti-Semitism, Netanyahu was actually defending Hitler, and he said, well, he's not a bad guy. He did that just because of the Arabs. When you see that, when the head of your country, of Israel, who's supposed to be the land of Jews, is defending the very person who pursued a very ethnic cleansing of Jews, you know that that is a bit fucked up.
Did you know Netanyahu is actually American?
Is he?
He was born
I
in
didn't know that.
Philadelphia.
Oh wow,
And it just
I
blows my
didn't know
mind
that.
how some American kid can just waltz into Palestine and become the leader, where people who are born in Palestine and actual Palestinians have no right to return back to their own land.
Absolutely. It's yeah, it's I don't know. I don't even have the words. And people say we need to have a conversation on what's going on. It's not really a conversation. It
I
can be
mean,
a
you can see, like, the other day I saw this video of a 10-year-old boy being arrested. 10 years old. And that's the whole thing with these people, with Zionists. They target Palestinian youth because they know that's the future. And for 73 years, they've been trying to destroy the youth. And every time they try and destroy the youth, more rise up, more come back fighting, the more they resist. And that's what I admire, Palestinians' resilience and resistance to all this, and the way they adapt. Like, my heart, I don't know, I would never be able to handle what those people go through.
yeah. Neither would
I
I.
mean, this 10-year-old boy is being arrested. A 15-year-old girl was shot in the back trying to she was walking into her own home, and the 10-year-old boy that was arrested, his little sister was begging these cops to let him go. And also, going back to the whole Black Lives Matter movement, US cops are actually trained by Israeli military. And so you'll see a lot of similarities in the way that they conduct themselves with the people they arrest.
Absolutely. But I also wanted to, you know, I do not have this big platform. Of course, I'm no one. But I wanted to send a message to some people who I've seen who tried, especially at the beginning, to put the Palestinian thing against Black Lives Matter and not see how it's basically about the same things. So if you are now living, let's say, I don't know, in the US, some place in the US, maybe in Detroit, okay? And but yes, you're suffering because cops are behaving the way they are. But at the same time, your home is, when you get back to your home, it's still your home. You're not getting bombed. You have water. So in some way, you kind of have some privilege over those people in Palestine who actually don't have anything. So when you address people like me who have always said that I'm full of privileges, I'm the most privileged person on earth. And when you speak up and you say, rightly so, that we should stand by and recognize our privilege and do something about that, I completely agree. Well, it is now your time that you do quite the same. Because if you, as I said, if you woke up without having any fear of your family being killed, of some foreign army coming and storming your house and killing your whole family, and taking your house from you. If you don't have that, and if you're not getting bombed, you already have some privilege, and it is really hard to think. I know, and there's no way we could ever um, get in those people's shoes um, and and even imagine how we will be living like that. So that is the privilege, and just
Also,
speaking out.
I wanted to mention, not it's not talked about a lot, but Afro-Palestinians, Black Palestinians who are even worse off than Arab, lighter skin Palestinians. They are natives to the land as well. They came in the 7th century from Africa, I think Nigeria, Sudan, a couple other countries. They were on their way to Makkah, and then they decided to just stay in Jerusalem, and they married the local woman, and it carried on. And then there were enslaved Africans who were brought to Palestine by the Ottoman Empire. So there's a large community of Black Palestinians who are under, also you can only access them, or it's very difficult to access them because of Israeli checkpoints, and they're even worse off. You know, they, I don't even know the condition that they live in, because they keep them so under wraps. But historically, all throughout history, Black people have stood in solidarity with Palestinians. The Black Panther organization, also big, huge supporters of Palestine.
Mhm.
So the struggles have been interlinked throughout history, and it needs to stay that way. Palestinians stand for Black lives, and Black lives for Palestinians.
Indeed, and so. Going to the very common question, but what can I do? Well, there are many things we can actually do. You can except from donating, of course. There are many. Oh, you know what? You know what we could do? Later on, we could post on our social media some links to some verified organizations to which you can donate to support the
Yeah.
cause. They serve primarily. They're not political. They basically serve food and shelter and those basic needs that people there need. So you can, of course, donate. But at the same time, as I said at the beginning, you can even just talking about it. That is the biggest thing you can do. That, and talk about it means maybe talking about it on social media, especially if you have a following on social media. So
But also, so when we say talk about it, it's also changing the narratives and words that the Zionists have been using. So
give us
things
some
like the
examples.
Okay, so things like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, this actually implies that there's a disagreement between two equal
Yeah.
parties, and we know this is not the case. One is more powerful than the other, so we'd instead use words like the Palestinian struggle, or the Israeli occupation of Palestine,
Or
and then
apartheid.
the IDF, Israeli Defense Force. Palestinians are starting to call them the Israeli occupation forces, because they're not defending themselves. So why do they call themselves the IDF? Crisis. I hate that word, crisis. It's apartheid. It's colonization. It's colonialism. We need to be mindful of the words we use. It's not both sides. It's Israel and Palestine. Separation wall. I don't know if people have heard about this, but there's this massive wall that runs through Palestine to separate Israelis and Palestinians, and Palestinians from other Palestinians. It's not a separation wall, it's an apartheid wall. Yeah, things like clashes. It's no clash, it's aggression.
Hmm.
Um,
Indeed. And
Eviction, it's not eviction, it's ethnic cleansing. It's forced expulsion. So just be mindful when you just check your words when putting out tweets or posts.
absolutely. And
Um,
may I go further, even further than
yeah.
that? Hamas isn't. It's not ISIS. It's not Al Qaeda. It's not a terrorist organization, not at all. So if you are familiar with European history, you will know that there was the resistance here in Europe against fascism and Nazism. That is not terrorism. You know why? Because the resistance won against Nazi fascism. At the same time, Hamas is not a terrorist organization. They are the resistance. They are the people who have been oppressed for 73 years and who are trying to bring some pieces together, but they're not terrorists. They're not ISIS. Hamas doesn't come to Europe and bomb Europe, for instance, or the US. They do not have terrorists in these countries, you know, making explosives and putting bombs in churches. That is not the case. That is not Hamas. You've never, not one single time, heard of Hamas threatening your country. You know why? Because it's not terrorism. It's just Israel using that word terrorism to justify their actions. But it's
Mm,
not the case. So when they bomb a hospital and they say because some Hamas people are in there,
mm.
well, even if it was the case, some people affiliated with Hamas were there. It's not terrorism. And even if that is the case, even if you have a terrorist in that hospital, you should not bomb the hospital. Because for one terrorist that is dead, hundreds of civilians, of people, of normal people who did nothing, are dying as well. So to wrap it up, Hamas is not terrorism, and I would like to
Did you
say
see
that.
the one page ad in the New York Times? Some American Zionist rabbi blasted Bella and Gigi Hadid and Dua Lipa, saying that Hamas is calling for a second Holocaust. And then saying that these three girls are agents of Hamas and that they want to destroy Jews and that they are anti-Semitic.
Wow.
And
Um.
it's they are, you can see that talking about this issue is working because they are shitting themselves. They are
Yeah.
terrified because they cannot control the narrative any longer. And I'm just going to encourage everyone who's speaking out to just continue. Don't let them scare you into not talking about it like the way they did with Mark Ruffalo. Stand your ground. Just keep talking about it. Stand by your values and stand by a, the belief that Palestine deserves to be free and will be free one day, because they can't scare us all. Yeah,
Absolutely. I
I mean, if you
absolutely
look
agree.
at the numbers over since this whole latest flare-up started, over 250 Palestinians have been murdered. 66, maybe even more. Like some of these numbers, I think are conservative, but over 60 children were killed. Over 2,000 wounded. Media institutions have been destroyed. Houses, over 2,000 houses have been destroyed. High-rise buildings, over 90,000 people displaced. Like, you seeing all this unfold before your eyes. And I think that the time for being neutral and taking Israel's side or seeing both sides of the story, inverted commas, is long gone because this is an unfair fight. When you look at the numbers side by side, Israel, 12 people were killed or died. It doesn't match up, and you can see who's the more powerful side.
Absolutely. I agree. I completely agree.
I
You
mean,
know,
over and above their outward violence, like, bombings and and the brutality of their military. There's other things that they do where they, queer Palestinians get, they pink wash the queer movement, and they make, they brainwash these teens. They brainwash them by saying, your families are going to reject you, and they hate you because you're gay or trans, and it further alienates these people as well. Israel always parades themselves as so progressive, and oh, we're the gay capital of the world, but they what they do to queer Palestinians is just, no, it's not. They're not. Don't believe them. They lie. They're a bunch of liars, and I mean, I'll post more resources on our social
Absolutely.
media where you can read
So
up
from
on.
now on, let's start posting more sources, more articles, more videos talking about that. And please follow our social media. We do not monetize from that, so we're not talking to have some revenue of our own. Just follow us because it is critical that you get informed. And if you have any question, anything we could help with, please do reach out to us. We will be more than happy to, of course, to speak out for to speak up for this
I
cause.
mean, also, like, I look at it from a South African point of view where we faced apartheid. And,
Exactly.
I'm like, people think Mandela just walked out of prison and freed us.
Yeah.
That's not how it worked. The world was exposed and we were made aware of what was going on in South Africa. They placed sanctions on us. They boycotted South African products. Companies cut South Africa off. They were like, we refuse to give you products unless you end apartheid. And they crippled us economically until there was pressure from the world, there was pressure from Black people, and eventually apartheid ended. So the same needs to be done with Palestine. If you see anything hummus on your in your supermarket and it says made in Israel, don't buy it. If you see fruit from Israel, or it will say occupied territories. If it says made in Israel, don't buy it. Targeted boycotts work. So if you decide, okay, this is the supermarket I'm going to target this year, let's keep writing to them to tell them to stop stocking Israeli goods. Tell them, you refuse to buy products from stolen land. Get your friends and family to do it, and you all work, and get your community to do it, and everyone gets involved in a targeted boycott. It's so much more effective than being like, okay, we are boycotting this brand and that brand, and we're not going to shop there, and like, who wishy-washy boycotting. You rather, focus
Absolutely.
and target
And
specific.
and speak up when you are at a dinner or at the hairdresser, or you're just refueling your car and you hear someone say some specific things. If you can, speak up. So I know it is not always easy. So I myself have a professor who's a Zionist who's using his social media to push a very, very strong Zionist agenda.
Hectic.
Yes, and I do know I cannot do anything about that because it's potentially going to ruin my career. Um, so I do know that sometimes it's not always the case. I know that. But if you can, when you can, if you're at a dinner and even someone in your family, your uncle or your father or your grandfather, someone says that maybe Palestinians are just bombing Israel and Israel is just responding, you should speak up and say that is not the case, and because there's evidence that it is not the case. So it's not your opinion. It's not an opinion. You can have an opinion on whether you prefer some kind of meat or another. You can say, I prefer going to the sea, to the beach, rather than to the mountain. But this is not the case for an opinion. So if you can speak up, speaking up, be it on social media or real life, is your strongest weapon. So yeah, I do hope that you, if you've never heard anything about this matter, I hope that we've at least triggered your curiosity, and that you will try to, get informed on the matter. And if you want to get involved in this whole thing, reach out to us. It will be our pleasure.
I just wanted to share a story quickly. That's something that happened here. So, people say protesting doesn't work, or raising awareness doesn't work. So the other day, we've been doing a lot of protests around my city. And the other day we had a motorcade where, you just drive through an area with your Palestinian flags, and you just make a noise and just bring awareness to the issue. And there was someone at the side of the road, and he just started swearing at a group of people, and calling them terrorists, and saying your people must go back to their land, etc., etc. They videoed him, posted it to social media. Obviously it spread like wildfire. And the guy actually came on to an Instagram live. He apologized, and he donated quite a large sum of money towards the Palestinian cause. He said
It's very
he's
nice.
educated himself. So you never know who you're going to educate in the process. And, sometimes people will lash out, not because they're hateful, but because they are just ignorant. I mean, you have to know the difference. Sometimes people are hateful, but if they're not a Zionist, there's a high probability that they've been fed the wrong information, and they're just naive. So yeah, just speak to people who are more knowledgeable in this. Try and look at different news sources to your usual sources. Yeah, and we'll post resources for you to refer to as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. I do
I mean,
agree.
in the day of the internet, there's no reason to be naive.
Indeed. Well, I think we should wrap it up here. And thank you for being with us. We hope you missed us.
Are we bringing back Song of the Week?
Let's skip it for this week.
Okay.
Let's skip it for this week, and we are coming back at full speed next week. Keep listening to the same song.
I was going to give you a Palestinian song.
Oh, then yeah,
but I'll
you
keep
can
it
go.
for...
No, you can go. That's good.
No, that's fine. I'll keep it for next week.
Okay, marvelous. So thank you very much for having been with us. We hope, as I said, that we at least triggered your curiosity, and that you can...
And with that being said, support Palestinian artists on Instagram, on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever. Watch their videos. Just art is one of the biggest things in a revolution. So support artists, amplify their work, and yeah, we can do this, people. We can do this.
Absolutely. So have a very nice weekend, and we will catch with you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.